My lawyer texted me at 3:17 a.m. Call me now. They're planning to make you disappear. I'm Carlos Montague, and at 61, I thought I'd survive the worst life could throw at me. Lost my wife Margaret to cancer 2 years ago, spent decades building ironclad construction from nothing, raised 2 kids who barely called until recently. Recently being the key word. See, my daughter Sienna had suddenly become the perfect child, calling weekly, helping with my financial planning, even introducing me to her sweet colleague who could review my insurance policies. My son Ronan cleaned up his gambling addiction overnight and started inviting himself to family dinners. I thought grief had finally brought us together. I was dead wrong. Literally. That 3 a.m. text changed everything. My estate attorney, the kind of man who considers 9 p.m. emergency hours, had one message that made my blood freeze. Your life insurance beneficiary was changed 6 months ago. You didn't sign it. Your daughter processed it herself. $1.2 million. Policy number I'd been paying on for 8 years. The woman I was planning to propose to next month was now set to collect when I died. And according to the policy details Sienna had filed, I was already showing signs of cognitive decline. Here's the thing about family betrayal. It doesn't knock on your front door. It gets a key made, moves in slowly, convinces you that caring and planning are the same thing. Until you realize the people asking about your health aren't worried about keeping you alive. Sometimes you think you're building something solid, only to discover everyone around you has been rigging the foundation to collapse. This story has more layers of deception than you'd believe possible, and every single layer was designed to bury me. If you've ever wondered why your family suddenly got interested in your finances, or if someone in your life has been a little too helpful with insurance questions, hit that subscribe button and drop your state in the comments. Because what I discovered about my own blood is something every parent needs to hear. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for this one. 8 months ago, I met Elowyn Sterling at Home Depot. 53 years old, silver hair that caught sunlight like spun metal, helping an elderly man choose the right screws for his deck repair. I was buying supplies for a client's kitchen renovation when I overheard her explain load-bearing requirements with the kind of patience that made me stop pretending to read paint labels. "Excuse me," I said after the old man left. "You know, construction?" Her smile could have powered my truck. My late husband was a contractor. I picked up a few things. We talked for 40 minutes about subflooring and permit requirements. She was intelligent, kind, and didn't seem impressed by my business success or intimidated by my financial situation. When I mentioned Margaret's death, she touched my arm with genuine sympathy. "Grief doesn't have a timeline," she said. "Some people never understand that." I asked her for coffee. She said yes. Elowyn Sterling seemed like a miracle. After 2 years of well-meaning friends setting me up with women who either wanted a sugar daddy or a grief counselor, here was someone who understood both loss and construction. She'd lost her husband 3 years ago, had no children, worked part-time at an art gallery downtown. She never asked about my money, never pushed for expensive dates or jewelry. When I offered to take her to Paris for her birthday, she suggested a weekend camping trip instead. "I prefer authentic experiences," she said. "Fancy restaurants can't compete with campfire coffee and honest conversation." My kids loved her immediately. That should have been my first warning sign. Sienna, who'd barely tolerated Margaret toward the end, welcomed Elowyn with uncharacteristic warmth. "Dad, she's perfect for you. You seem so much younger when she's around." Ronan, who usually managed 3 words per phone call, started inviting himself to our dinner dates. "Elowyn gets it," he told me. "She understands family loyalty." Even my business improved. Elowyn had suggestions for streamlining operations, ideas about employee benefits packages, insights into customer psychology that increased our profit margins by 12%. When I mentioned updating my insurance policies, she encouraged me to be generous with the people I loved. "Security isn't selfish, Carlos. It's responsible." She was right about everything. Too right. Last month, Sienna started working late shifts at Pacific Life Insurance, processing high-value client accounts. She'd call me afterward with helpful reminders about policy updates and beneficiary reviews. You know, Dad, most people forget to adjust coverage when their circumstances change. Ronan's gambling debts vanished overnight. When I asked about his sudden financial stability, he shrugged. Got a loan from a friend. Low interest, flexible terms. Elowen began staying over 3 nights a week. She'd make breakfast, review my calendar, suggest I delegate more responsibility to my foreman. You're carrying too much stress, darling. Men your age need to be careful. She bought me a blood pressure monitor, started researching cardiac specialists, mentioned how her first husband had worked until his heart gave out at 58. Promise me you'll slow down, she'd whisper, kissing my forehead. I can't lose another good man to overwork. I thought I was the luckiest widower in America. A beautiful woman who cared about my health. Kids who'd finally grown up enough to show concern for their father. A business running smoother than ever. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Like how Elowen always knew my schedule without checking my calendar. How she'd ask specific questions about my medications, my driving routes, my weekend plans. How she'd encourage me to spend less time at construction sites, too many dangerous tools, and more time relaxing at home. Her home, where she controlled the environment, the food, the conversations. 3 weeks ago, she suggested updating my will. Not because anything's wrong, she assured me, but because life is unpredictable. Margaret would want to know your assets are protected. That's when she mentioned her friend who worked in estate planning, someone who could handle everything discreetly, efficiently, someone who could make sure my loved ones were taken care of. I almost signed those papers, almost handed over power of attorney to the woman I trusted more than anyone alive. Almost made it easy for them to erase me completely. But grief has taught me something valuable. When life feels too perfect, start asking questions. That's why I'd asked Alder to review my existing policies last week. Routine maintenance, nothing suspicious. Just a man trying to be responsible with his finances. What he found was anything but routine. Show me the documents, I told Alder when I arrived at his office at 4 a.m. He'd made coffee strong enough to wake the dead, which felt appropriate given the circumstances. The beneficiary change form was dated March 15th, 2024. My signature looked perfect. Too perfect. The kind of perfect that came from practice. Sienna processed this personally, Alder said, pointing to the approval stamp. Bypassed the normal verification protocols. Listed herself as the witness. I studied my daughter's handwriting. Clean, confident, professional. No hesitation marks. No second thoughts. She's been planning this for months, hasn't she? Carlos, I need to ask you something. Have you felt different lately? Confused? Memory issues? The question hit me like cold water. What are you suggesting? Your handwriting analysis shows micro tremors consistent with certain medications. And according to this medical form Sienna submitted with your policy change, you've been experiencing cognitive decline. I'd never seen that medical form before in my life. There's more. Elowen Sterling isn't just your girlfriend, Carlos. She's been asking questions about you around town. Detailed questions. Your business partners, your doctor, your banking relationships. Alder handed me a manila folder thick as a phone book. I hired a private investigator 3 days ago. Just a routine background check, something I do for all my clients dating after spousal loss. Standard precaution. Magnolia Rodriguez had been thorough. Elowen Sterling had indeed been married before. 3 times, actually. Her first husband, Michael Thompson, died in a hiking accident in Colorado, 2019. Fell from a cliff during a romantic weekend getaway. Her second husband, James Patterson, died in a car accident in Nevada, 2021. Single-car crash on a remote highway. Police found traces of sedatives in his blood, but the amounts were consistent with prescription anxiety medication. Her third husband, William Hayes, died of natural causes in Arizona, 2022. Heart attack while camping, no witnesses. The autopsy showed elevated levels of digitalis, a heart medication he'd never been prescribed. Each husband had been a widower. Each had been wealthy. Each had updated his life insurance policy within 6 months of meeting Elowen Sterling. Each policy had her listed as the sole beneficiary. Jesus Christ, Alder, she's a serial killer. That's what I thought too, until I kept reading. The next section of Magnolia's report changed everything. Elowyn Sterling wasn't just a grieving widow with bad luck in love. She was a person of interest in an ongoing FBI investigation into insurance fraud targeting widowed men across the Southwest. Agent Ambrose Chen had been tracking her movement patterns for 18 months, but they'd never been able to prove intent or establish a clear pattern of premeditation. Until now. The FBI has been watching her, Carlos. Watching you. You're not her victim. You're their bait. My hands shook as I read the surveillance reports. Photos of Elowyn meeting with unknown individuals. Financial records showing large cash deposits in accounts across 3 states. Phone records documenting calls to numbers linked to organized crime investigations. But it was the final page that broke me completely. A bank routing slip showing a transfer of $800,000 from an offshore account to a domestic account held jointly by Sienna and Ronan Montague. My children hadn't just met my potential killer, they'd hired her. How long have they been planning this? Alder's voice was gentle, the way he'd spoken when he'd explained Margaret's medical bills after she died. The earliest financial movement I can trace goes back 13 months, right around the time Ronan's gambling debts reached critical levels. 13 months. Before I'd ever heard Elowyn Sterling's name. Before that chance meeting at Home Depot, which meant it hadn't been chance at all. I thought about every conversation, every gentle touch, every concerned question about my health. I thought about Sienna's sudden career advancement at Pacific Life Insurance, Ronan's mysterious loan that had solved his financial problems overnight. They'd been counting down the days until my death for over a year, and I'd been too grateful for their attention to notice. But the game wasn't over yet. I need to see everything, I told Magnolia Rodriguez 6 hours later. She'd agreed to meet me at a diner outside of town, away from anyone who might recognize Ironclad Construction's logo on my truck. Magnolia was exactly what I'd expected from a former police detective turned private investigator. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense attitude, and the kind of cynicism that came from seeing too much human weakness. Your girlfriend has been busy, Mr. Montague. Elowyn Sterling, if that's even her real name, has moved through the Southwest like a natural disaster. Always the same pattern. Target widowed men with substantial assets, establish romantic relationships, gain financial access, then disappear after tragic accidents. She spread photographs across the table like a dealer showing a royal flush. Security footage from banks, restaurants, airports. Elowyn with different hair colors, different clothing styles, different names. Michael Thompson in Colorado knew her as Elena Stone. James Patterson in Nevada called her Elizabeth Sullivan. William Hayes thought he was dating Emma Sinclair. Each photograph showed the same woman with minor variations. Subtle changes in makeup, posture, accent probably, but those eyes were unmistakable. The same eyes that had looked at me with such apparent love for 8 months. How did she find me? Social media, obituaries, public records. She targets men within 2 to 3 years of spousal loss, financially successful, socially isolated. You checked every box, Mr. Montague. The hardest part wasn't learning about Elowyn's history. It was seeing the evidence of my children's involvement. Magnolia had traced the money. $800,000, split equally between Sienna and Ronan's accounts, deposited in increments over 6 months. The source was a shell company registered in Delaware, which connected to another shell company in Nevada, which eventually led back to accounts linked to Elowyn's previous inheritances. Your daughter didn't just process your insurance change, Mr. Montague. She initiated it. These emails show her reaching out to Elowyn's contact 3 months before you even met. The emails were devastating. Sienna writing to someone called ES Management. Subject, Target Confirmation Asset. Verification complete. 4.2 M total value. Subject is isolated, trusting, shows signs of depression following spousal loss. Recommend standard approach with modifications for family resistance concerns. Recommend timeline, 12 to 18 months maximum. Subject has strong work ethic, may become suspicious. if relationship progresses too quickly. Ronan has gambling debts that could complicate. Suggest advance payment to secure cooperation. Family resistance concerns, I repeated. They knew I might be suspicious of anyone who moved too fast. Gets worse? Magnolia said. Check the next email chain. Ronan's correspondence was even more clinical. Dad's been asking about my finances, told him I got a loan from a friend. He bought it, but we need to accelerate timeline if possible. His blood pressure medication could be increased gradually. Sienna has access to his medical records through Pacific Life. Can adjust coverage to support underlying health conditions narrative. E suggests camping trip next month. Isolated location, lots of opportunities for accidents. Can make it look like overexertion led to cardiac event. They'd been planning my murder with the same attention to detail I used for construction projects. Timelines, risk assessments, contingency plans. There's something else, Magnolia said. Agent Chen wants to meet with you. The FBI has been trying to build a case against this operation for 2 years, but they've never had a surviving target willing to cooperate. Surviving target? Mr. Montague, you're not supposed to be alive right now. According to our analysis, the original timeline called for your death 6 weeks ago. Something changed their plans. I thought about the past month and a half. Elowen had seemed more anxious lately, more insistent about spending time together. Sienna had called 3 times, asking about my will. Ronan had suggested multiple camping trips, all to remote locations with poor cell service. What changed? We think they know the FBI is watching. Someone spooked them, made them cautious. But that caution is the only reason you're still breathing. The photographs of Elowen's previous victims looked back at me from the table. Michael Thompson, outdoorsman who died during his favorite hobby. James Patterson, careful driver who crashed on a road he'd driven hundreds of times. William Hayes, healthy man who suffered a heart attack while doing something he loved. Each death had been perfectly crafted to seem natural, expected, sadly inevitable. They're not just stealing money, I realized. They're stealing lives, identities, futures, and they're very good at it. Mr. Montague, without FBI intervention, you would have been victim number 4. Your children would have inherited everything minus Elowen's fee for services rendered. I stared at the evidence spread across the table. Bank statements, insurance documents, email printouts, surveillance photos, the complete blueprint for the systematic dismantling of my existence. But something didn't add up. If the FBI has been watching Elowen for 18 months, why haven't they arrested her? Magnolia's expression darkened. Because they're not just after Elowen Sterling, Mr. Montague. They're after the entire network. And to do that, they need someone on the inside. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. They need someone Elowen trusts completely. Agent Ambrose Chen looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. When we met at the FBI field office downtown, his desk was covered with photographs, financial records, and enough coffee cups to fuel a small army. Mr. Montague, what I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. We've been running a long-term operation targeting a criminal network that specializes in inheritance fraud. Elowen Sterling is just one operative in a much larger organization. He spread a map across his desk, marked with red pins across 7 states. 19 suspected victims over the past 5 years. Combined theft of approximately $12 million. At least 6 deaths that we can definitively link to this network. The scope was staggering. What I'd thought was personal betrayal was actually a piece of an interstate criminal enterprise. How does it work? Reconnaissance phase identifies targets through public records, obituaries, social media. Demographics team builds psychological profiles. Financial team verifies assets and identifies the most efficient approach. Operational team executes the plan. Chen pointed to a flowchart that looked like something from a corporate presentation. Your case was classified as family-assisted target acquisition. Your children were recruited and compensated to provide inside information and eliminate potential obstacles. The clinical language made my stomach turn. My kids had become consultants in my own murder. Show me the evidence. Chen pulled out a thick folder. We've been monitoring communications for 8 months. Phone records, email intercepts, financial tracking. Your daughter Sienna has been particularly cooperative with the operation. Then the phone records showed calls between Sienna and a number registered to Stellar Consulting, Elowen's front company. Dozens of calls, often lasting 30 to 40 minutes, scheduled around her shifts at Pacific Life Insurance. Email intercepts were worse. Status updates on my daily routine, health monitoring, behavioral analysis, Sienna documenting everything from my coffee preferences to my sleep patterns. Subject maintaining regular schedule. Blood pressure elevated during insurance discussions. Recommend gradual approach to policy changes. Noted increased alcohol consumption following Margaret. Anniversary date. Emotional vulnerability. Window. Optimal for relationship advancement. Physical indicators suggest subject may have underlying cardiac stress. Recommend medical consultation to establish documented health concerns. They'd been treating my life like a research project. What about Ronan? Your son's role was primarily motivational. The gambling debts were real, but the consequences were exaggerated to ensure his cooperation. The individuals threatening him were part of the network, not independent creditors. Chen showed me surveillance photos of Ronan meeting with men who looked like they'd stepped out of a mob movie. Staged intimidation to keep him compliant and desperate. The $800,000 payment to your children wasn't just compensation, Mr. Montague. It was proof of commitment. Once they accepted that money, they became accessories to conspiracy. I thought about Ronan's sudden change in behavior over the past year. His newfound respect for me, interest in family time, concern for my well-being, all of it had been performance, bought and paid for. Agent Chen, why are you telling me this? Why not just arrest everyone? Because we need your help to catch the entire network. Elowen Sterling is mid-level at best. We need to identify her handlers, their financial networks, their other ongoing operations. Chen leaned back in his chair, studying my reaction. Mr. Montague, we want you to go back, continue the relationship, help us gather evidence that will shut down this organization permanently. The idea of facing Elowen, knowing what she really was, made my skin crawl. But the thought of other families being destroyed the way mine had been made my decision easy. What do you need me to do? Act normal. Don't change your routine or behavior patterns. We'll provide you with recording equipment and monitoring devices. Your job is to get them to reveal details about their operation, other targets, financial structures, future plans. Chen handed me a business card with only a phone number. This connects directly to my secure line. Use it only if you're in immediate physical danger. How do I know when I'm in immediate physical danger? Trust your instincts. If they're pushing for sudden changes, insurance updates, will modifications, travel plans to remote locations, call immediately. We spent 3 hours going over operational procedures. I'd be fitted with recording devices that looked like normal clothing accessories. My house would be swept for surveillance equipment. My phones would be monitored to ensure my safety. One more thing, Mr. Montague. We believe your children are unaware of the murder aspect of the operation. They likely think this is just financial fraud. Steal some money, disappear, everyone moves on with their lives. The possibility that Sienna and Ronan didn't know about the killing was somehow both better and worse. Better because it meant they weren't planning my death. Worse because it meant they were naive enough to think professional criminals would leave witnesses alive. When do we start? You've already started. The moment you walked into my office, this became an active FBI operation. From now until we make arrests, you're working undercover for the federal government. Chen's expression was deadly serious. Mr. Montague, I need you to understand something. If this network suspects you're cooperating with law enforcement, you will be eliminated immediately. These people have killed 6 men that we know about. They won't hesitate to make you number 7. I thought about Margaret, how she'd faced cancer with the same determination she'd brought to everything else. She never backed down from a fight, especially when something mattered. This mattered. Agent Chen, what's the timeline? We estimate 2 to 3 weeks before they move to the final phase. Whatever they're planning, it's going to happen soon. I left the FBI office with recording equipment disguised as a watch, a pen, and a belt buckle. My truck had been fitted with a GPS tracker that would alert Chen's team if I deviated from normal routes. For the first time in months, I knew exactly where I stood. Not on solid ground, on quicksand, but at least I knew I was sinking. I called Sienna first. "Honey, we need to talk. Can you come over tonight?" "Of course, Dad. Is everything okay? You sound stressed." The concern in her voice was perfect. If I hadn't seen the emails, hadn't read her clinical assessments of my emotional state, I would have believed every word. "Just some business stuff I want to run by you and Ronan. Family meeting. I'll bring dinner, Thai food from that place you like." 2 hours later, my children sat in my living room, looking like the perfect picture of filial concern. Sienna had brought my favorite pad thai, extra spicy. Ronan had flowers for the kitchen table, Margaret's favorite daisies. If I were paranoid, I might wonder if the extra spicy food was meant to mask any unusual tastes. "Dad, you seem worried," Sienna said, reaching across to touch my hand. "What's going on?" The recording device in my watch was capturing everything. According to Agent Chen, I needed to get them talking about their financial arrangements, their timeline, their contact with Elowen's network. "I've been thinking about the insurance policy changes," I said carefully. "The ones you helped me with, Sienna." Her smile never wavered. "Of course. You wanted to make sure Elowen was protected if something happened to you. I thought it was sweet." "I don't remember making that decision." "Dad, you've been under a lot of stress. The business, losing Mom, starting a new relationship, that's a lot for anyone to handle. Sometimes we make decisions and forget the details later." Ronan nodded supportively. "You've seemed scattered lately, Dad, more forgetful. Maybe you should see a doctor." They were gaslighting me with professional precision, making me question my own memory, my own judgment, my own perception of reality. "What about your gambling debts, Ronan? You said you got a loan from a friend?" "I did. A private lender, very discreet. No big deal. $800,000 is no big deal." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Sienna's smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. "Dad, how did you know the amount?" "I know because I hired a private investigator to look into both of your finances. Want to guess what she found?" Ronan's face went pale. Sienna's hand tightened on her wineglass. "You hired a PI to investigate your own children?" Sienna's voice carried just the right amount of hurt and indignation. "Dad, that's heartbreaking." "You know what's heartbreaking?" "Finding out my daughter forged my signature to change my life insurance beneficiary. Finding out my son has been lying about his debts for months. Finding out both of you have been taking money from the woman I'm dating." "Dad, you're not making sense." Ronan's voice was shaky now. "We would never—" "I have the bank records, Ronan. I have the emails, Sienna. I know about Stellar Consulting. I know about the timeline. I know you've been planning this for over a year." Sienna stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Okay, fine. You want the truth?" "The truth would be refreshing." "Elowen approached us 6 months ago. She said she was a financial consultant who specialized in helping families navigate inheritance planning. She offered to help us ensure you were making smart decisions with your money." The lie was smooth, practiced. She'd probably been rehearsing this conversation for weeks. "And the $800,000? "Consultation fees, advance payments to ensure we could provide proper advice about your financial planning." $800,000 in consultation fees? "Dad, you're worth over $4 million. Professional financial advice isn't cheap." Ronan joined in, his confidence returning. "We were trying to protect you, Dad. You've been so lonely since Mom died. We were worried about you making impulsive decisions. Like falling in love with a woman who murders her boyfriends for insurance money?" The silence that followed was deafening. Sienna stopped pacing. Ronan's face went from pale to gray. "What did you say?" Sienna whispered. "Elowen Sterling has been married 3 times. All 3 husbands died in accidents. All 3 had life insurance policies, listing her as the beneficiary. The FBI has been tracking her for 2 years. I watched my children process this information. The shock looked genuine, which gave me the first hope I'd felt in days. "Dad, we didn't know," Ronan started. "Didn't know what? That professional criminals don't usually leave witnesses alive? That when you take money from murderers, you become accomplices to murder?" Sienna sank into her chair, her hand covering her mouth. Oh my God. Oh my God, what have we done? You've helped plan my death. The question is, are you going to help prevent it? For the next hour, I watched my children come apart. The denial, the bargaining, the desperate attempts to rationalize their choices. But slowly, the truth emerged. They'd been contacted by Stellar Consulting 18 months ago. The initial proposal was straightforward financial fraud. Help establish a relationship between their father and a professional con artist, provide inside information to facilitate theft, split the proceeds. No one had mentioned murder. They said it would be like a divorce, Sienna sobbed. Take some money, disappear, everyone moves on. They said men like you never even reported financial crimes because you were too embarrassed. What changed? Last month, they told us the timeline was accelerating. They said you were getting suspicious, that they needed to complete the operation quickly. They wanted us to encourage you to go camping, Ronan added miserably. Said it would be good for your stress levels. Fresh air, physical activity. And after the camping trip? They said you'd probably have an accident. Your heart, the elevation, the physical exertion. Sienna's voice was barely a whisper. They said it would look natural. I stared at my children, my adult children who had sold me to professional killers for $400,000 each. Here's what's going to happen next. Agent Chen's phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. I was sitting in my truck outside a 24-hour truck stop, my hands shaking too badly to hold coffee steady. They've moved up the timeline, I told him without preamble. It's happening tomorrow. Slow down, Mr. Montague. Tell me exactly what occurred. After my confrontation with Sienna and Ronan, they'd made frantic phone calls. Within an hour, Elowen had arrived at my house with a bottle of wine and a smile that no longer fooled anyone. Darling, the kids told me you've been having some anxiety about financial planning. I thought we could talk it through. The recording device in my belt buckle captured every word as she maneuvered me into agreeing to a romantic weekend getaway to help clear my head. Just you and me, Carlos. No distractions, no stress. I know a beautiful place in the mountains, very private. We can talk about our future without any outside pressure. She'd already made reservations at a remote cabin 60 miles north of the city. No cell service, no neighbors, no witnesses. Tomorrow night, Carlos. Pack light. Just some casual clothes and your hiking boots. I want to show you the most beautiful sunrise you've ever seen. After she left, Sienna had called in tears. Dad, don't go. Please don't go with her. We tried to call it off, but they said it was too late. They said the operation was already in motion. What exactly did they tell you? That if you didn't have the accident tomorrow, they'd arrange accidents for all of us. They know where we live, Dad. They know our routines. They said we're all loose ends now. The criminal network had reached the point where my entire family had become liabilities. The only way to protect themselves was to eliminate all of us. Agent Chen, they're not just planning to kill me anymore. They're planning to kill my children, too. We anticipated this possibility. Mr. Montague, I need you to listen carefully. Do not deviate from the plan they have established. Go on the trip with Elowen Sterling. Act normally. We'll be tracking your GPS location and monitoring all communications. You want me to walk into an isolated cabin with a serial killer? Mr. Montague, we need you to trust the process. This is our best opportunity to gather evidence of premeditation and to identify the other members of the network. Chen's voice was calm, professional, utterly cold. We'll have teams positioned within 15 minutes of your location. The moment she makes any aggressive move, we'll intervene. What if 15 minutes is too late? It won't be. Mr. Montague, Elowen Sterling is a professional. She's not going to act impulsively. These operations are planned to the minute, choreographed to appear accidental. We'll know her move before she makes it. I thought about Margaret, how she'd trusted her oncologist's treatment plan, even when every instinct screamed that the chemotherapy was killing her faster than the cancer. Sometimes trust required ignoring your survival instincts. What about Sienna and Ronan? They'll be in protective custody starting at 6 a.m. tomorrow. We'll stage arrests for insurance fraud. Make it look like they're being processed through the normal legal system. The network will assume they're neutralized as threats. The plan made sense tactically, But emotionally, the idea of spending 24 hours alone with someone who'd been methodically planning my death felt like volunteering to be fed to sharks. Agent Chen, I need you to understand something. If this goes wrong, if something happens to me, I don't want my children to carry that guilt for the rest of their lives. They made terrible choices, but they were manipulated by professionals. Mr. Montague, nothing's going to happen to you. We've been planning this operation for months. Every contingency has been considered. After ending the call with Chen, I sat in my truck thinking about the past 8 months. Every conversation with Elowen, every family dinner, every moment of happiness I'd felt since Margaret died. All of it had been performance, manipulation, preparation for murder. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how desperately I'd wanted to believe it was real. I'd been so lonely, so grateful for attention, that I'd ignored every warning sign. Elowen's perfect timing, her children's sudden interest in my welfare, the 2 convenient solutions to problems I hadn't even known existed. I'd wanted a family again so badly that I'd handed myself over to people who saw me as nothing more than a target. At 2:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Elowen. Can't sleep thinking about tomorrow. Pack your heart medication. The altitude might affect your blood pressure. See you at 10 a.m., my love. Even her fake concern was perfectly calculated. Mentioning heart medication established a medical justification for whatever cardiac event they were planning to stage. Mentioning altitude provided environmental cover for why a healthy man might suddenly collapse. I texted back, looking forward to it. Should I bring anything else? Her response came immediately. Just yourself, darling. That's all I've ever wanted. The most terrifying part was that she might actually mean it. In her own twisted way, Elowen Sterling might genuinely care about me. She might feel real affection for the man she was planning to kill. That didn't make her any less dangerous. If anything, it made her more dangerous. A killer who felt nothing would be predictable, mechanical. A killer who felt something was capable of anything. I drove home through empty streets, past the construction sites where I'd built my business, past the hospital where Margaret had died, past the cemetery where I'd visit her grave every Sunday for 2 years. I thought about what I'd tell her if I could speak to her one more time, that I was sorry for being lonely, sorry for trusting the wrong people, sorry for putting our children in danger because I couldn't handle being alone. But mostly, I'd tell her I was going to fight. Not just for my life, but for the lives of other widowed men who'd been targeted by this network. For the families who'd been destroyed by professional predators. For the foundation we'd built together that nobody had the right to tear down. Tomorrow, I'd drive into the mountains with a woman who'd been planning my death for 8 months. I'd pretend to love someone who saw me as nothing more than a financial transaction. And I'd help the FBI destroy the entire operation, even if it killed me, because some things are worth dying for, and justice is one of them. The FBI technical team worked through the night preparing my equipment. By 6 a.m., I was wearing more recording devices than a reality TV star, wireless microphones woven into my jacket lining, GPS trackers embedded in my boots, even a tiny camera disguised as a shirt button. Remember, Agent Chen told me as we reviewed the operation plan for the final time, act natural. Don't try to force confessions or push for information. Let her lead the conversations and respond normally to whatever she proposes. What if she offers me something to drink? Food? Accept it. We need evidence of intent. If she's planning to poison you, we need to document the attempt. The casual way he discussed my potential poisoning wasn't exactly reassuring. The moment you feel any physical symptoms, dizziness, nausea, heart palpitations, use the emergency signal. Press the button on your watch for 3 seconds. We'll be inside the cabin within 10 minutes. 10 minutes might be too long if I'm dying. Mr. Montague, you won't be dying. Dr. Patricia Williams will be monitoring your vital signs through the medical sensors in your clothing. The instant your heart rate or blood pressure shows dangerous changes, we move. They'd thought of everything except how to make me feel less like bait in a trap. At 9:45 a.m., Elowen knocked on my front door carrying a picnic basket and wearing hiking clothes that made her look like an advertisement for outdoor romance. Her smile was radiant, her enthusiasm infectious. "Ready for our adventure, darling?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The drive to the mountain cabin took 90 minutes. Elowen chatted about wildflowers, weather patterns, and the therapeutic benefits of fresh air. Every word was recorded by the microphone in my jacket collar. "I used to come here with my late husband," she said as we wound through pine forests toward our destination. "It's where he proposed to me, actually. Very romantic, very private." "Which husband was that?" "William, my third. He loved the outdoors, just like you." The same William Hayes who died of a heart attack while camping. The symmetry was either coincidental or deeply psychological. The cabin was exactly what I'd expected. Isolated, rustic, surrounded by wilderness. Beautiful and perfect for hiding a body. "It's gorgeous," I told her, meaning it. "Wait until you see the view from the ridge. We'll hike up there for sunset. The perspective is transformative." She unpacked our lunch with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Sandwiches, fruit, a thermos of coffee that smelled like vanilla and almonds. "Try the coffee, Carlos." I added a special blend of spices. Very good for circulation. The recording equipment captured my acceptance of the potentially lethal beverage. I sipped it slowly, noting the slightly bitter aftertaste beneath the vanilla. Within 15 minutes, I felt wonderfully relaxed. My heart rate slowed, my breathing deepened, my muscles felt loose and comfortable. "Feeling better already?" Elowen asked, watching my reaction with professional interest. "Much better. What kind of spices did you use?" "Family recipe, passed down through generations of women who knew how to take care of their men." And she suggested we rest for an hour before hiking to the ridge viewpoint. I agreed, settling into a comfortable chair on the cabin's porch while she bustled around inside, preparing for the afternoon's activities. The microphone picked up her phone conversation from the kitchen. "Yes, he's responding normally to the mild sedative. We'll proceed to phase 2 at sunset as planned. No complications so far. The target is compliant and unsuspicious." Phase 2, sunset. Ridge viewpoint. I understood the plan now. A peaceful afternoon, a romantic hike to watch the sunset, then a tragic accident when the sedative-impaired widower slipped and fell from a cliff. My watch showed steady vital signs despite the drugs in my system. Whatever Elowen had given me was designed to impair judgment and coordination without triggering immediate medical alerts. "Carlos, darling, are you ready for our hike?" The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. Golden light filtered through the pine trees, creating the kind of natural beauty that Margaret would have photographed for hours. "I'm ready," I told the woman planning to kill me, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I actually was. The ridge trail was steeper than I'd expected, winding through dense forest before opening onto a spectacular overlook. Elowen walked beside me, pointing out wildflowers and bird species, playing the role of nature-loving girlfriend with Academy Award precision. "Just a little farther, darling. The best view is right around this curve." The sedative made my legs feel heavy, my balance uncertain. Exactly the kind of impairment that would explain a fatal fall to investigating officers. We reached the scenic overlook just as the sun touched the horizon. The view was genuinely breathtaking, rolling mountains stretching to infinity, painted gold and orange by the dying light. "Beautiful," I said. "Yes, it is. William thought so too, right before he died here." The casual admission hit me like cold water. Elowen was no longer pretending. He had a heart attack, didn't he? Digitalis-induced cardiac arrhythmia, actually, very difficult to detect in postmortem analysis, especially when the body isn't found for several days. She pulled a small vial from her jacket pocket, holding it up to catch the sunset light. Clear liquid, no odor, completely innocent looking. "This is concentrated digitalis extract, derived from foxglove plants, which grow wild all over these mountains. 1 drop on your coffee cup rim, absorbed through lip contact. 15 minutes later, your heart stops beating." The microphone was recording every word. The FBI teams positioned 15 minutes away were hearing her confession in real time. "You poisoned my coffee?" Not yet. That comes after our conversation. Elowen sat on a large boulder, patting the space beside her. Sit with me, Carlos. I want to explain something. Against every survival instinct, I sat down. The recording equipment needed a full confession, complete details about the network's operations. I genuinely care about you, she said. That might sound strange given the circumstances, but it's true. You're a good man who deserved better than what life gave you. If you care about me, why are you planning to kill me? Because caring doesn't pay my bills. Because this network owns me completely. Because if I don't complete this operation, they'll eliminate both of us anyway. Her voice carried real sadness, genuine regret. Do you want to know the truth, Carlos? I never wanted this life. 5 years ago, I was Elena Morrison, trying to pay my dying mother's medical bills. The network recruited me when I was desperate, trained me to be what they needed. You could walk away? No, I couldn't. They have files on every operation, every death, every crime I've committed. If I disappear, they release everything to law enforcement. If I refuse assignments, they arrange accidents for people I care about. Elowen stared out at the darkening landscape. I've killed 6 men, Carlos. Good men who trusted me, loved me, welcomed me into their families. Each time I told myself it was the last time. Each time they found another target. What about my children? They were never supposed to be involved. The network prefers external recruitment. Find people with gambling debts or financial problems. Offer solutions in exchange for cooperation. Your kids volunteered. The distinction felt important. Volunteered how? Sienna contacted us through online channels used by people seeking illegal financial services. She offered to provide inside information about a high-value target in exchange for payment. My daughter had reached out to criminals first. The network hadn't corrupted her. She'd corrupted herself. Ronan's involvement was secondary. Once Sienna committed, they leveraged her relationship with her brother to expand their information base. And the murder plan? They don't tell recruited family members about the killing. Too many variables, too much emotional instability. Your children think this is just sophisticated theft, which explained their genuine shock when I told them about Elowen's history. The network structure is compartmentalized. Field operatives like me know only our immediate handlers. Recruiters work independently. Financial specialists handle the money laundering. No one person knows enough to bring down the entire organization. Except you. Except me. Elowen smiled sadly. I know names, accounts, operational procedures. I know how they identify targets, recruit assets, launder proceeds. I know everything because I've been their top performer for 3 years. She pulled out her phone, showing me a contact list with dozens of names. This phone contains enough evidence to destroy the entire network. But if I try to use it, if I contact law enforcement, they'll know within hours. How? Because someone in law enforcement is working with them. Someone with access to FBI communications, investigation files, surveillance operations. My blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying the network knows about your cooperation with Agent Chen. They know about the recording equipment, the GPS trackers, the surveillance teams. Elowen stood up, pacing to the edge of the cliff. That's why they moved up the timeline, Carlos. Not because your children talked, but because someone told them the FBI was using you as an asset. Then why are we here? Why go through with this? She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. Because I found out who the leak is. And I found out why Agent Chen really recruited you. The forest around us was completely silent. No bird sounds, no wind, no distant traffic. Just 2 people on a cliff surrounded by darkness and betrayal. Carlos, you're not bait for catching the network. You're bait for catching me. Agent Chen has been trying to flip me for 2 years, Elowen continued. Not to destroy the network, to take it over. The world shifted beneath me like an earthquake. Everything I'd believed about the FBI operation, about justice, about who were the good guys and who were the bad guys. Chen approaches network operatives when they're vulnerable, offers them immunity in exchange for cooperation. But what he really wants is control of the operation, not destruction. She showed me her phone again, opening a video file. Agent Chen's voice was unmistakable. We don't want to eliminate the network, Elena. We want to redirect it. Target criminals instead of innocent victims. Use the same infrastructure for legitimate law enforcement purposes. When did you record this? 3 months ago. He's been pressuring me to identify other operatives, to provide access codes to financial accounts. He thinks I don't know his real agenda. The recording equipment was still capturing everything, which meant either Chen was about to be exposed or we were both about to die. Elowen, if Chen is corrupt, then the surveillance teams aren't coming. There are no surveillance teams, Carlos. There's just Chen, waiting for confirmation that both problems have been eliminated. She pulled a second phone from her pocket. This one's sleek and obviously expensive. But Chen made one mistake. He didn't know I've been recording everything for the past year. Insurance policy, in case I needed to prove my value or expose corruption. The phone contained hundreds of files. Audio recordings, financial documents, photographs, email chains. Evidence not just of the inheritance fraud network, but of federal law enforcement corruption. This phone proves Chen has been facilitating the network's operations in exchange for a percentage of proceeds. He provides inside information about ongoing investigations, warns targets when they're under surveillance, eliminates evidence that could lead to arrests. Why are you showing me this? Because you're the only person who can get this evidence to honest law enforcement. Chen thinks I'm going to kill you tonight, then disappear with network funds. Instead, I'm going to fake both our deaths and get this evidence to the State Attorney General's office. Elowen outlined her plan with the same meticulous attention to detail she'd used for planning murders. We'd stage an accident scene at the cliff edge. Torn clothing, blood evidence, signs of a struggle. My body would never be found because there was no body to find. Chen will report that the operation went wrong, that we both fell during a confrontation. The network will assume I died in the accident. The FBI will close the case. And then what? Then Elena Morrison comes back from the dead. I testify against the network and against Chen. You disappear until the trials are over. It was an elegant solution, assuming it worked. Assuming Chen didn't have backup plans, assuming the State Attorney General's office wasn't also compromised. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only person who knows enough to destroy this thing completely, and because... She hesitated, looking genuinely vulnerable for the first time since I'd known her. Because I'm tired of being a killer, Carlos. I want to be Elena Morrison again. I want to remember what it feels like to love someone without planning their death. She handed me the evidence phone. If you're willing to trust me one more time, we can end this tonight. The decision felt like stepping off the cliff voluntarily, but Margaret had taught me something about taking calculated risks for the right reasons. What do you need me to do? Die, Carlos, at least officially. Elowen smiled, and for the first time in 8 months, it looked completely genuine. Then come back to life when it's time to testify. As the last light faded from the mountain sky, Carlos Montague officially died in a tragic accident at Sunrise Ridge. What emerged from that wilderness 3 hours later was something else entirely. 6 months later, I testified in federal court as the primary witness in the largest inheritance fraud prosecution in FBI history. The network had collapsed completely, with 47 arrests across 8 states and recovery of over $15 million in stolen assets. Agent Chen was serving 25 years for corruption and conspiracy. The real FBI had been horrified to discover one of their senior agents was facilitating the crimes they were supposedly investigating. Elena Morrison, I still thought of her as Elowen sometimes, had entered witness protection after providing testimony that convicted everyone from network leadership to local recruiters. Before she disappeared into her new identity, she'd visited me one last time. "Do you think we could have been happy together?" she asked. "In another life, if we'd met under different circumstances?" "I think we were happy," I told her, "for about 10 minutes on that cliff, when you decided to save my life instead of taking it. That's more happiness than I thought I deserved." Sienna and Ronan had pled guilty to conspiracy charges and received 5 years probation in exchange for cooperation. They'd testified against their network contacts, provided financial records, helped federal prosecutors understand how families were recruited and manipulated. Our relationship remained complicated. They were still my children, but trust had to be rebuilt slowly, carefully, with professional counseling and clear boundaries. I'd rewritten my will, established a foundation focused on protecting elderly Americans from financial fraud, and hired professional management for ironclad construction. The business was thriving under leadership that understood the difference between loyalty and competence. The Montague Foundation had already helped 12 families recover stolen assets and provided resources for law enforcement training programs. Margaret would have approved of using our wealth to protect others who faced similar vulnerabilities. Some nights, I still thought about that sunset at Sunrise Ridge. How beautiful it had been, how peaceful, how close I'd come to dying there, and how that near death had given me purpose I'd never expected to find. I wasn't lonely anymore, but I wasn't actively seeking romantic relationships either. Elowen had taught me the difference between being alone and being vulnerable. I could handle the first. I'd never risk the second again without proper precautions. If this story reminded you of anyone in your life, or if you've seen similar red flags in your own family, share your city in the comments. The Montague Foundation monitors these patterns nationwide, and your experiences help us protect others. Because sometimes the people who claim to love us the most are the ones planning to destroy us. And sometimes the only way to save yourself is to trust the person who's supposed to kill you.